Right, welcome to the planning meeting on the 16th, I think it is, of July 2026. I'll start with the normal housekeeping readout. May I remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording is archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand in person if sat in the chamber, or use the remote raise hand function. If a participant raises their hand via the remote function is not subsequently invited to speak by myself, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by myself, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the Chair or Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or to grab the attention of myself or the Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the Chair or Democratic Officer know as soon as possible. So please could I welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, our officers, public speakers, residents, and also anyone watching via the live meeting broadcast. When we come to the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, please. Mark.
Yeah, we've had one apology of absence so far, Chair from Councillor Ernest, but obviously I'll open it up to committee members if they want to volunteer anymore.
Thank you. Councillor Robert Fisher from Cowbridge regrets sincerely that he cannot be here today.
Just to check, Councillor Chaz, Councillor Fisher isn't on the planning committee, so he doesn't need to declare an apology in this case. So
sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No worries at all. Thank you.
Right. So, agenda item 2, declarations of interest and the nature of such interests under the Council Code of Conduct. Councillor Aviat. Julie.
She's got a hand up.
If you put your request to speak on now, Councillor Aviat, you'll be able to come on screen.
Sorry, am I there now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm reading off a cue card. Sorry, but it's for transparency. I wish to declare a personal interest in this item, item 8. As a close family member resides directly opposite the application site. Neither they nor I have made any representations in relation to this application, and I or my family member has any financial or other personal interest in the outcome. I will therefore be remaining in the meeting for this agenda item and participate in the debate, and I will be voting if need be on the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Just to clarify, you're talking about agenda item 2024 01152 full Flemingstone Road. Is that correct?
She needs to come back.
Julie, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. No other declarations of interest. Right, we move on to agenda item 3. Minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 18th of June.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Agenda item 4, reports to the Head of Sustainable Development, building regulations, applications and other building control. These for noting.
Yeah, happy to move the noting.
Second. Agenda item 5, planning applications determined by the Director under delegated powers, again for noting.
Happy to move noting.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, appeals. Ian, you've got some, you're taking this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just run committee briefly through the 4 appeal decisions. There aren't plans in the report, so if any member wants to see any more detail or wants the plans, let me know and I'll send them afterwards. The first one was a dismissed appeal at 37 Tennyson Road in Penarth. It principally related to the design of the extension and its impact on the character of the dwelling and the wider street scene. It's nothing particularly sort of novel about this case. It just reinforces what we already understand about the need to ensure design is appropriate for the area and the building that you're attaching to. The second appeal related to a proposed outbuilding at a property called Tifanon on Drope Road in St George's, Super Ely. This case related to the impact of the outbuilding on the character of Tifanon, given that it is a listed building. The principal finding of relevance here was that whilst a building of some form would probably be acceptable in principle, given the nature and size and height of the kind of the principal listed building, the outbuilding, which was of a not insignificant scale, would adversely affect the setting of that listed building. So consequently, that appeal was dismissed as well. The third one is probably the most interesting one on the list. That relates to another dismissed appeal for a new dwelling at land at St Andrew's Quarry, St Andrew's Road, Dinas Powys. So there were a number of reasons for refusal here. The inspector agreed with us on a few counts, main ones being that the dwelling would adversely impact upon the character of the area by virtue of being kind of physically distinct from the existing settlement, not forming a logical extension or infill of an existing settlement. So essentially being, unauthorised development in the countryside, albeit not necessarily that kind of greenfield, open field countryside that we may be familiar with. Second reason related to sustainability in the absence of a kind of a clear, safe means of pedestrian and cycle travel to the settlement from the site. So the applicant sought to make a case that there was safe access along either a minor kind of footpath or St Andrew's Road, which is relatively highly trafficked. So the inspector agreed that that wasn't an environment conducive to non-car journeys, so they found that unsustainable. And the third impact related to highway safety. There were some alterations proposed to the highway, which the inspector agreed with us were not safe. So that was dismissed. And the fourth one is a property called Homry Barn, which is in St Nicholas, and this relates to an outbuilding that's being constructed next to a converted barn. There's a history of a previous refusal and previous dismissed appeal here. The applicant sought to make amendments to the building, make it a bit lower, try to reduce its visual impact, but officers and the inspector were of the view that it continued to kind of jar with the setting of the converted barn. Obviously, one of the main premises of converting a barn in the countryside is that the conversion should kind of retain the original agrarian and rural character. Only other point to note there is it wasn't highly visible from lots of surrounding viewpoints. The main viewpoints were a public right of way, so probably just worth noting that something doesn't need to be visible from a very well used public road for there to be kind of legitimate harm in terms of visual impact, and that was dismissed as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. I note that the enforcement action on the last one is proposed as well.
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, trees. Again, these are for noting, I think.
Move we note.
Thank you. I'll second. Right, we come on to the meat of the matter today, the planning applications. There are matters arising on a number of these, 3 out of the 4, I think. And it's worth noting that the second that we have on our agenda, 2025-01-282 full, Geilston Battery Storage, Geilston Farm, Geilston, has been withdrawn. So we won't be considering that one today. So if we also have public speakers on the others. So if we start with 2023-00051 HYB, number 1 Dock and the Mole, Neptune Road, Barry. And I think, Rob Lancashire, you're taking us through this.
I am. I'm really sorry. I actually might be for everyone's benefit. You can't see me. I'm having some issues with my video this end. So as long as you can hear me, okay. Is that all right?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, fab. Okay, can I have the slides up, please? Okay. Let's just move on to the presentation if we can, please. Okay, just before we start, members will note that an incorrect report for this application was originally circulated, but the amended correct version was sent expeditiously to amend this error. This presentation relates to the most up-to-date report for the amended scheme, that amongst other things excludes the marina referenced in the initial incorrect report, so apologies for that initial error. There are also matters arising relating to amended and deleted conditions that have been circulated for members to note. Okay, so the application relates to former industrial land that projects into Barry Dock, as you can see on the slide before you. The Barry Community Water Activity Centre lies to the eastern end of the mole, with the newly constructed district centre located to the west. In terms of policy context, the site constitutes previously developed land and falls within the wider strategic site for mixed-use development within the Barry waterfront, as identified by the current adopted local development plan. The next slide, please. So just for context, this is a photograph taken from the south looking towards the mole, just giving an indication of surrounding development. So to the left-hand side there, you can see the district centre and newly constructed flats, kind of 3-4 story development. The mole is the green, predominantly green kind of finger sticking out into the dock there on the other side of the water. And yeah, you can see other development within Barry rising up the hill, and you can see the chimney of the pump house there. So yes, next slide, please. This application is a hybrid application with full planning permission being sought for the raising of the level of the land to ensure that the level would be above 9 metres AOD, with the areas in purple on the plan before you indicated to have a height of 9.3. This is to raise the development plateau above the predicted tidal flooding level. Next slide, please. The outline element of the proposal includes mixed-use development of the site, including 100 dwellings, a water sports centre with associated college education facility and cafe to the eastern part of the site. Just in summary, the red area is the access road going down to the parking area and boat and storage facility for the water sports area. The water sports centre itself is demarcated in pink. Dwelling houses indicated in the kind of aquamarine turquoise colour, and the blue blocks are proposed to be flatted apartment buildings. Obviously, members, please note that this is an indicative scheme, so the details of which would be considered under a further reserved matters application. It's also worth noting that the areas in the kind of greeny yellow shade are proposed to be areas of public realm and provide up to 0.8 hectares of public open space. Yes, so, sorry, to get on to the next slide, please. The proposed scale parameters include apartment blocks up to 4 stories, which are those shown in purple. The dwelling houses, again, are shown up to 3 stories, and lower development proposed to the eastern end with a 1-story boat store, indicatively shown, and the water sports activity centre being up to 2 stories, shown in the pink. The officer's report provides a detailed appraisal of the salient planning matters, including but not limited to the principle of residential development in its location, visual impact, highway safety, amenity of neighbouring residential properties, ecology, and flood risk. I won't go through, fully repeat the report for brevity, but I'll just touch on a few of the salient planning matters now. In terms of flood risk, as noted, the raising of the land is submitted to ensure that the site is flood free. The submissions have been supported by technical flood risk information, including a flood consequence assessment and subsequent update. This has been considered by officers and consultees, including Natural Resources Wales, who have found that the proposed works to raise the level of the land would ensure the development of the site to be above identified flood levels, and is therefore acceptable in terms of flood risk and would comply with the provisions of Technical Advice Note 15 as detailed within the report. In terms of ecology, the proposal has been also subject of significant consultation with Natural Resources Wales and our council ecologists. Amongst other things, it's been identified the presence of think quality grassland at the site, and also considerations have been given to impacts on wider ecological designations, including those within the Severn Estuary. As per the officer report, it's noted no outstanding objections remain, subject to suitable conditions being attached to any planning permission given, including that relating to grassland translocation, biodiversity enhancements and sensitive site clearance. It's considered, therefore, that from an ecological perspective, there are no grounds to refuse planning permission. Next slide, if I may, please. In terms of the quantum of developments, consider proposal to amount to efficient use of land, including dwellings and significant areas of public realm, as shown on the previous slides. In terms of the mass and scale of buildings, it's evident that the site is read in conjunction with a number of similarly scaled buildings, including those within the district centre, which you can see to the centre and right of the picture there. You can also see on the left-hand side of that picture the existing housing development to the southern side of Barry Dock, which also includes 3- and 4-storey development. It's considered, therefore, by officers that subject to further detailed design consideration, the proposal would amount to a suitable form of development in this location and would also represent an efficient use of previously developed land as envisaged by Planning Policy Wales. The application has also been supported by a number of site investigations that have sought to identify potential contamination issues relating to historic industrial uses of the site, including for oil storage, I believe. The Council Shared Regulatory Services and Natural Resources Wales have considered these details and raised no objection to proposed use of the site, subject to suitable conditions being attached to any consent granted. Members are advised that owing to significant site constraints, including site enabling works, dock wall repairs, new service infrastructure and requirements of levelling up funding to provide a multifunctional park throughout the development, it has been demonstrated there are significant viability constraints affecting the site that would render the scheme unviable if a full suite of planning contributions were secured. Nevertheless, 30% affordable housing would be delivered by the council's housing section, in addition to significant areas of public realm throughout the development. Redevelopment of this land as part of the strategic site is highly reliant on external grant funding, and without which it is highly unlikely that development would proceed. It's considered that proposals have evident significant regeneration and economic benefits to Barry and the wider Vale of Glamorgan, and as such it's considered reasonable to waive financial contributions that may ordinarily be sought in such instances. Again, a full appraisal of that has been provided within the officer report. Noting all of the aforementioned and the content of the officer report and those within the matters arising, it is officer's recommendation the application should be approved. Members should note the recommendation is to approve planning permission subject to conditions set out in the report. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Rob. As I indicated earlier, we do have some speakers. Councillor Shirley Hodges, the newly elected local member, wishes to speak. If you come on, you have 5 minutes, Shirley.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I want to focus today on a simple question. Is this the transformational regeneration that the people of Barry were promised? Over recent years, this project has been presented as a once-in-a-generation opportunity for Barry waterfront. A regional scheme that would create jobs, attract visitors, support businesses and provide a lasting economic legacy for the town. But what is before us today is a fundamental different proposal. The marina has gone. The marina-related facilities have gone. The purpose-built business incubator has gone. The economic offer that helped justify this regeneration has been significantly reduced and altered. At the same time, the number of homes has increased from around 65 to 100. Housing was always part of the wider regeneration package, but it was meant to sit alongside economic development, tourism, business opportunities and leisure facilities. My concern is that as those elements have reduced, housing has become the dominant part of the proposal. Regeneration cannot simply mean building more houses. Genuine regeneration should create opportunities, jobs, investment, and a better future for the community. I welcome the retention of the water sport facility on the Mole, but members should recognise that this element has itself evolved during the process, having previously been considered elsewhere. It should not be used to suggest that the wider economic offer originally proposed remains unchanged. I also welcome the restoration of the dock office. It is an important historic building and a valuable part of Barry's heritage. However, the dock office is a separate project with Barry making waves and is not on the Mole, and it is not a like-for-like replacement for the purpose-built incubator building that formed part of the original planning application. It should not be used as a reason to suggest that no economic benefit has been lost. If this proposal was presented to the public at the beginning of the process, with fewer economic opportunities and 100 homes, would it have been described as transformational? I suspect the answer would be no. I fully support regeneration of Barry waterfront. Barry deserves investment, recognition of its history and development that creates opportunities for future generations, but we should not confuse development with regeneration. Regeneration is about the quality and legacy of what is delivered, not simply the number of homes built. My concern is that the public benefits have reduced while the residential elements has grown. The community is being asked to accept substantially fewer of the economic and regeneration benefits that originally justified the scheme. The proposals raises legitimate questions about whether it still achieves the balance envisaged by Welsh Government placemaking principles between homes, employment, community facilities, economic opportunities and long-term public benefit. The fact the circumstances have changed is precisely why we should reassess whether this scheme still delivers the benefits that justified it in the first place. Members need to be satisfied that what is before you today still delivers the transformational economic and community benefits that Barry was promised. Because Barry deserves more than a reduced vision. Barry deserves a scheme that genuinely lives up to the promise of regeneration, and I don't believe this does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. Are there any points of clarification from members of the committee? Are there any points of clarification? No, I see no hands. In that case, thank you, Councillor Hodges. Our other speaker on this item is Charlotte Rain, who's speaking for the applicant. Charlotte, you have 3 minutes from when you come on.
Good afternoon. My name's Charlotte Rain. I'm one of the major project managers at the Vale of Glamorgan Council. This application forms part of the Barry Making Waves programme supported through UK government funding, the Levelling Up Fund, of almost £20 million, representing a major investment for Barry. The scheme has been amended to reflect ABP's withdrawal last year and the omission of Marina. The amended scheme has been carefully developed by officers to ensure that the overall quantum of development remains proportionate. This is demonstrated not only in terms of built form, scale and massing, but also in relation to transport impact, green infrastructure provision, public realm and the delivery of a high quality space. The updated technical work confirms that the amended development remains acceptable and no adverse impacts have arisen as a result of it. Instead, the changes represent a positive evolution of the scheme, ensuring that it remains deliverable and policy compliant. It is hoped that planning permission would be granted to enable the council to start the work towards the end of this year. The site faces several challenges due to its brownfield dockland location, as identified in the officer's report, but appropriate mitigation has been presented and all consultees are satisfied. A decision in July is important to maintaining the delivery programme, as the remedial works need to commence as soon as possible to support completion of the Levelling Up Fund scheme by March 2028, which is the funding deadline. Any delay could prejudice the project's ability to meet that deadline. The proposal represents a high-quality, design-led, mixed-use waterfront scheme, combining a new education and water sports activity building, significant publicly accessible waterfront parkland, alongside residential development that maximises the unique coastal setting. The proposed water sports centre offers enormous benefits. It will provide a permanent solution for training, education, recreation and community activities, building upon the existing temporary structures operating at the end of the mole. We are working in partnership with Ocean Water Sports Trust and the college in order to develop this opportunity for new skills, outdoor activities and to develop that confidence in the water. It's important to note this is a hybrid application, so it is in parameter plan format. So we are just establishing key development principles at this stage, allowing for reserved matters to come forward to consider that detail. We consider that it represents a deliverable, well-considered and transformative regeneration opportunity. On this basis, it is respectfully requested that the application be approved.
Thank you, Charlotte. Again, any members of the committee have any points of clarification they'd like to ask Charlotte? I see no hands. In that case, we will move on. Rob, do you want to respond to it, either of the speakers, and any of the points they raised?
Not in a minute, thank you, Chair.
In that case, we can open up the meeting to discussion. Councillor Charles, I think your hand may have been up first.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the first thing that I was going to talk about was the end of the marina, because if this goes ahead, there will definitely not be a marina. And I'd like to thank Councillor Hodges for all the excellent points that she made today. They were all very, very relevant. If this is passed, and I really hope that it's not, I'd like to know what is the present level of the mole and how much has it to be raised to reach the 9 metres above the ordinance datum. And in items 2, 3 and 4 of the executive summary indicate the development of a water sports centre, college, education facilities and cafe, together with parking on public open space, together with associated infrastructure. Is this attainable on such a small piece of land? What precautions will be taken to ensure that the land is not contaminated, as we found around the other areas of the dock? Is unpolluted products to be brought in from elsewhere to raise the level to ensure the product used is not contaminated and reused product, as when they moved it from the Welsh school across to opposite the dockland in open trucks? I do not understand the raising of the land due to flooding. Can you tell me when it was last flooded? I've lived here all my life. I don't remember it ever flooding. And what testing has been done to see if the existing soil is not contaminated? But my biggest point is there will never be a marina, and I think Barry deserves that more than anything. Thank you, Chair, for your time.
Thank you. We have a number of hands up already. So next on my list is Councillor Nick Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman. I speak as a member of the Planning Committee and also as a local member who is happy to share with you our new reinforced political mandate for the area, and the residents down there do not want this scheme. But my points that I'm going to make are purely on policy. The scheme plainly no longer achieves the wider placemaking ambition. Planning Policy Wales states that development should create places that deliver social, economic, environmental and cultural value, not just physical development. The number of maps and plans I've seen for the mole, the green space has shrunk to nothing. This is a housing estate. My concern is that this proposal does not fully meet the Welsh Government's placemaking objectives, because the balance has shifted massively away from the economic regeneration and towards purely residential development. A successful place is not just where some people live, it's where they can work, learn, visit and thrive. In our Vale of Glamorgan Local Development Plan 2011-2026, Policy SP2, Strategic Sites Barry Waterfront, the waterfront is identified as a strategic mixed-use regeneration site. The LDP vision is not simply housing. It is a creation of a sustainable urban quarter with distinctive places and community facilities that link with Barry and Barry Island. It's been stated, of course, that the Water Sports Centre is to be placed on the end of the mole. Well, in the various reincarnations of this plan, it has bounced between the mole and the quayside on a number of occasions. It's now back with the mole. And quite simply, it's because of the lack of possibility of, yes, a marina, and secondly, also the business opportunities that have been shifted by the Vale of Glamorgan to one of their own buildings. I continue. The Barry waterfront allocation was based on a mixed-use regeneration vision. My concern is that as key economic elements have been removed, like I've just said, the scheme no longer delivers that same mixed-use balance that was envisaged and promised. The LDP specifically identifies objectives for Barry, including creating employment, this is 0, training and learning opportunities, encouraging economic development and inward investment. Once you've built a housing estate, there will be no inward investment, providing community services, facilities and infrastructure. The removal of that marina and incubator reduces the employment, training and inward investment opportunities was central to the original regeneration objectives for Barry. The planning system in Wales requires decisions to consider long-term social, economic, environmental and cultural benefits. Members must consider surely whether this revised scheme provides the long-term legacy originally promised on our mole, which is 137 years old, or whether the reduction in economic benefits leaves future generations with a far smaller ambition. This is not a named policy, but I'll give you a key planning judgment. The issue before members is not whether the development should happen. The issue is whether this revised proposal still provides the level of public benefit that justified the original strategic regeneration site justification. I would add one small thing. My concern is that those elements have been reduced, housing has remained and is increased in importance. I would ask members to consider original plans and maps that have been around for a number of years. The strip of parkland we were originally promised has gone. There is no green space. We're supposed to be in a nature emergency. We're supposed to be concerned about biodiversity. This is a green lung in the middle of our town, in a regenerated area that has already had huge regeneration and building and houses placed there. Barry deserves better, the waterfront deserves better, and this council should do better. And I will come to you later with a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. The next person I've got, unless Rob, do you want to come in now and respond to the two speakers we've had so far, or do you want to wait till others have spoken?
I mean, it's quite a lot of ground covered already, so if you don't mind, I might just cover a couple of the bits off now, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Is that okay? So in terms of contamination matters at the site, this has been considered, as I noted in my presentation, at significant length. There's been a number of site investigation reports which have been prepared. These have been considered again by shared regulatory services, who are actually satisfied with the details therein, and that there isn't significant contamination at the site. Natural Resources Wales need a little more clarification on a couple of matters, but again are satisfied that it can be dealt with suitably by condition, suitably remediated and suitably verified to ensure that the use of the site can be used beneficially, regardless of its previous uses. There's also associated conditions relating to piling to protect groundwater. And there's also conditions about Site 1 materials, use of aggregate soils being brought onto the site to ensure that they are suitable and safe for use, not only in terms of what is in the material, but also to support any development above it, including a high waste condition requiring details to ensure it can be suitably compacted. In terms of the proposed college use, I mean, there isn't huge levels of information included within the application, but in terms of the use and provision of an associated facility related to the water sports centre, obviously there'll be further detail submitted as part of a reserve matters application for one, and obviously a mixed use to facilitate some kind of educational facility there would provide a mixed use benefit of the scheme, and would evidently comply with the overall aims for the marina, the mole development as a whole, as part of a wider waterfront development. Moving on to the marina, I understand the concerns about the evolution of the scheme. I mean, Charlotte's probably a little better placed to kind of discuss the kind of historical issues relating to that. My understanding is that in terms of there's grant funding for the site. Obviously, ABP were originally a partner for the site, and I think there was lots of kind of work done with regard to commercial viability of a marina, and it didn't appear that it stacked up. And I understand that's why the scheme has changed in the nature it is. And also bearing in mind that the LUF funding, or levelling up funding, that Charlotte has referred to, is time sensitive in terms of when it can be used and when it can be drawn. I believe it's beginning of 2028. If that funding is not used, I believe that is then gone and not available. So in terms of planning policy, Wales, I know Councillor Hodges just mentioned compliance with certain policies. This is a mixed use scheme. It is policy compliant with regard to kind of placemaking and what have you. Yes, it isn't what the scheme was before. It still does deliver. I think I mentioned in my earlier kind of summation about 0.8 hectares of public open space within the mole. Yes, the form of that open space has changed somewhat, although I understand that the previous linear nature of the space did cause significant issues in terms of usability of spaces and what facilities could be provided therein. Hence why I believe the design changed more to the kind of pocket park kind of form that's being shown now, whether it be free principal areas of open space that are detailed within the kind of green infrastructure plans and open space details that include different character areas that would be available for people to use. And that would include biodiversity enhancements and different forms of planting, structural planting, open space areas that would be freely available, and high quality areas of public realm. Again, it is that element of the scheme is in outline. So while the indicative master plan is quite high level, it is obviously subject to the further reserve matters application. So there's nothing to say that these areas could not evolve, inform, and obviously satisfy some of these concerns with regard to the usability and function of those spaces. So, sorry, just going through the other things. Ultimately, I would just reiterate that, yes, okay, it may not have some of the kind of whistles and bells of the previous schemes in terms of a marina and what have you, but ultimately the scheme from a planning point of view is policy compliant. It would provide, in my personal opinion, subject to reserve matters application, a high quality form of development with good quality public realm and mixed uses which support each other. In terms of the dock office, I think, yes, the incubator use has moved there. That is outside the scope of this application, obviously. But the levelling up funding, was for that purpose, providing incubator use and regeneration of the dock office, which, obviously is a listed building, which, having worked there for 15 years, had quite a significant level of kind of maintenance issues that would possibly, render the use of, the continued use of that building difficult. And, although acknowledging the kind of concerns that people have noted, in the absence of the levelling up funding, again, this is straying out of policy and probably planning to a certain degree. But, in the absence of the levelling up funding, there's a significant viability gap on this site. And, without it, it could well be that no development could occur on this site. So whilst there could be aspirations for maybe something of a slightly different form, the scheme before us is the scheme before us. It is acceptable in planning policy terms. It is at high level because it's in outline. And obviously it would be subject to further reserved matters applications. And the last point, I promise, I appreciate I am going on a little ramble here. In terms of the levels of the site as existing, my understanding is that they range between anything between 7.2 metres, and there is a kind of mound on the site, which is up to about 11.5 metres. I believe the typical height is circa 8.6, 8.7 metres. So the raising of the level to the anticipated level would be, generally kind of 70 centimetres or so, but obviously that will fluctuate subject to the ground conditions across the site because it's not a uniformly flat site. Hopefully that's helped a little. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I think, Ian, you've got something you wanted to add?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, listen, Rob's been clear on those points, but I just wanted to amplify the points about viability and the levelling up funding. We all wanted a marina, I think it's fair to say, when we saw the plans for it, and that was a really exciting prospect. But in simple terms, it huge costs with it, and it's just not deliverable, and that's regrettable. We hoped it would be deliverable, but the costs involved with delivering a marina simply don't stack up. And whilst we do recognise frustrations with changes to the scheme and that people would have liked to have seen a marina, we can't. Well, our view clearly as officers is we can't hang on to that prospect and keep proposing planning applications and recommending planning applications that can't be delivered. Yes, certain elements of the scheme have gone, but we have to recommend something which is viable and deliverable. And to our mind, the worst outcome would be not delivering a scheme that provides still significant benefits in terms of regeneration, in terms of the Water Sports Trust, in terms of the overall package which facilitates development of the dock office, albeit not part of this planning application, and the critically needed affordable housing. Those are not insignificant benefits, and they are meaningful, and they can be delivered, and they would make a big difference to Barry, albeit not the scheme before. They still represent significant positives in our view. And just finally, on the Ocean Water Sports Trust, yeah, I recognise the location has changed. I dealt with the planning application some years ago to locate it at the point of East Quay Park. Whilst we did arrive at a scheme that worked, it was always my view that this was the right location for it. So I would have no regrets that it has landed back here in terms of this proposal. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Still got some more people with their hands up. Gillian Bruce, you had your hands up.
I did, but most of my points were already addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Councillor Mark Wilson, then, is my next hand.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you very much to the officers for your summary of the report, and thank you for the members who have already spoken. Obviously, most of this application is what we call outline. It's not the detail that we got, and obviously the only real detail we really got is on the actual of the ground levels. Everything else is an outline. But I also like to emphasise, and I know we haven't got a page number on the new report, but if you look at the table for Barrack Road, there's a list of 1,040 people wanting accommodation on different types of bedroom accommodation. And that demonstrates to me certainly the need for such accommodation within this area. And as you can see, the applicant is Vale Glamorgan Council with Lovell Homes. And that suggests to me it's going to be delivered for the people of Barry on an affordable basis. And really that's something that we desperately need in this area of Barry. And clearly, you know and I know, we've seen the data recently on how the rapid increase in rented costs of people privately rented accommodation. It's going towards £1,000 a month now for even a 2 or 3 bedroom property, which for lots of people is not very affordable at all. If we can provide more affordable accommodation for the people of Barry, we are doing what we should be doing as councillors. And I'm very, very happy to support this application. I also think it's a balanced application because you've got the waterfront development as well. And I'm thinking without that kind of money going into this, that may not happen at all. And also there's a natural synergy with an educational establishment, as you know, being established by Cardiff Vale College, literally across the road from the other side of the mall. So really, I do think this is viable for those reasons, and I am happy to support the officers on this.
Was that you moving off?
I'm happy to move recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Payne.
Thank you. Obviously, the mole is the first part of docks. It's the deep part of the deepest water. I had a conversation with my father last night. He did his apprenticeship on the docks in the 1940s. But I do have a concern about water safety. So particularly in relation to children and families and building housing on there. So this is surrounded by the deepest water in the dock. So there has to be mitigation in place, and I believe it is a material consideration because of the dock's entrance and the Bristol Channel. And unlike a typical residential site, there are multiple points where residents could be close to hazardous waters. And we should be satisfied that the development has fully accessed the risks for accidental access to deep water, particularly by children in play or open areas. And there should be effective waterfront barriers where necessary, safe public spaces and rescue equipment, clear access and a comprehensive water safety strategy. We've gone through the effects of climate change. I do have an issue around the dredging of the Old Harbour as well, and the levels on the dock. That is another issue that we need to be looking at. If you look at, if redevelopment of the Old Harbour, for those people who know the history of the Old Harbour and the levels in the Old Harbour, there has to be some appreciation of sea levels rising in terms of climate change too, which would affect the levels on the dock ultimately. But we need to provide a safe environment for our future residents throughout the lifetime. And this needs to be sympathetic to the heritage. This mole is very unique in the history of Europe, actually. It's one of the only ones that had train tracks on there. And it is very unique, really. I mean, there's only another few around in the UK. So that's my point, really, is majorly about deep water safety. Thank you.
Set myself off. Thank you, Councillor Payne. We have one more hand up at the moment. Two more hands up at the moment. The first, though, is Councillor Ian Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to say I agree with both Councillor Hodges and Councillor Charles. Barry does deserve better. Everyone wanted to have the marina. I was absolutely gutted when ABP pulled out and we losing a levelling up front, which made it unviable. But Barry does deserve better, even if we can't give it the marina. And I really think that water sports thing that they're going to do, the social and economical public benefit will be significant for the people of Barry. Their houses that are built, if they can be predominantly social housing or low cost housing, that would be amazing. But I'd rather do something with that land than do nothing, because Barry and the waterfront does deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Ian Johnson, your hand was next.
Just for people in the chamber, if you put your headsets on and flick the switch to on, it should be on the appropriate channels. Obviously, people that are online on Easy Conference, you can use on the left-hand side of your screen, there should be an option for you to go over to the relevant channel to hear the Welsh translation.
It's amazing how long we spend introducing meetings without actually explaining how the translation function works. Ydy pawb yn iawn yn y siamber? Diolch yn fawr. So, fi'n siarad fel aelod newydd unwaith eto o'r pwyllgor cynllunio. Dwi'n cynrychioli ward Buttrils sydd yn agos iawn i'r môl a nifer o drigolion yn ward fi yn gallu gweld y môl. Y môl, sef môr glawdd sydd yn canol doc Rhif 1 y Bari yn lle iconic. Mae'n darn hanesyddol o'r dociau fel wnaethon ni glywed yn gynharach gan gynghorydd Payne. Mae Bari yn heiddi gwell. Ni wedi trafod adeiladu ar y môl ers i'r cynlluniau ar gyfer y glannau dechrau, siŵr o fod 35 mlynedd yn ôl, pan oeddwn ni dal yn yr ysgol. Rydyn ni'n dal yn trafod yr un peth. Roedd syniadau sawl mlynedd yn ôl ar gyfer y cronfa fyniant, y Levelling Up Fund, a oedd e'n gyfer marina, oedd gyda 400 o cywch, oedd ar gyfer adeilad iconic, oedd gyda beth oedd yr aelod seneddol ar y pryd oedd yn dweud, oedd yn mynd i fod yn 30,000 square feet hot desking workspace to enable the professionals who've moved to Barry to the new housing to work locally rather than travel to Cardiff. The Barry Making Waves project will put rocket boosters under the regeneration ambitions. Rai cyfadde, ni ddim yn cael beth oedd pobl yn addo. Ni'n cael stad tai ar lle iconic. Mae Barry yn heiddi gwell. Os wy'n gallu mynd hyd yn oed, mae hwn wrth gwrs wedi newid dros y blynyddoedd, hyd yn oed wythnos diwetha roedd ein swyddogion cynllunio yn gyrru manylion anghywir allan, roedd rhaid i nhw adnewyddu'r adroddiad ar gyfer y cyfarfod heno. Un pwynt sydd heb ei drafod yn digon manwl yw'r hyfwyedd, a viability. It is considered that there are significant viability constraints. While there are significant viability constraints, there are significant regeneration benefits to the scheme, and as such, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Dwi'n bach yn hen ffasiwn, ond mae'r adroddiad sydd gyda ni sy'n rhan o'r papurau yma, sydd ddim wedi cael ei dyfynnu yn gywir yn y papurau, yn dweud bod yna diffyg 4 miliwn o bunnoedd. Felly, ni'n cael ein gofyn i dderbyn rhywbeth pnawn yma, sydd yn hybrid, sydd i bob pwrpas mewn egwyddor, sydd yn stad tai, gyda dyled diffyg 4 miliwn mwyn cyflawni, a dylwn ni derbyn hyn heddiw. A gyfer, a dim bai ar swyddogion am ceisio cyflawni hyn, ond maen ni'n cael ein gofyn mwyn ffitio mewn i amserlen mwyn gwario'r arian sy'n dod gan Lywodraeth Prydain. Felly, ni'n cael ein bawnsio mewn i benderfyniad pnawn yma pan ni ddim yn hapus gyda'r awgrymiadau sydd o flaen ni. Lle ydy e'n dweud beth yw'r benefits ar gyfer adfywiad yma? Achos i gyd dwi'n gweld yw tai, parc neu tri o gwmpas y lle, ac wedyn y canolfan dŵr ar y diwedd o'r môl. Dydy hwn ddim yn dim byd i beth oedd pobl y Bari wedi cael ei addo gan Lywodraeth Prydain neu gan y cyngor yma. Mae'n cymleth a mae'n anodd gan fod y cynllun yma yn cael ei gyrru gan y gyngor yma. Mae wedi cael ei croesawu eisoes gan aelod o cabinet y cyngor yma, a ni'n cael ein gofyn i dderbyn hyn pnawn yma. Ac i bob pwrpas fel rhywun sy'n dod o'r Bari, dwi ddim yn derbyn bod hwn yw'r ddefnydd gorau i'r môl i lle iconig yng nghanol dref ni. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I have no other hands up that I can see. Nick, you can come back, yes. Briefly, hopefully.
I'd just like to respond to a comment made earlier about the number of people seeking housing within my ward. Yes, there are always people seeking housing. I've got 7,500 adults in my ward, and you're telling me 1,000 want housing in my ward? Are you seriously telling me that? Can I just say that perhaps ABP should have gone into politics, because they certainly stopped the boats. We didn't get the marina, which was always the plan that was envisaged with this levelling up funding. If you're going to build on somewhere as iconic as the Mole, perhaps we should consider building on Penarth Pier in the future. This is a bad scheme, and I move rejection.
I think
we've already had a motion for approval for officers' recommendations, which is before us. So, yes,
I've moved it.
Yeah, moved and seconded. Yeah.
We can vote first.
Right, we come back. Rob, there's been a lot of points there. Do you want to come back on all of them, please?
Yeah, I can come back on a few. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the considerations in terms of safety, there's a legitimate point. Obviously, again, it's not a detailed scheme at this point. Yeah, that would be considered at reserve matter stage in terms of, you know, exactly how the site was going to be developed. Obviously, there's a requirement in doing any of these things to, you know, to comply with relevant legislation in terms of health and safety. So, yes, that would be considered, well, certainly by the council in developing the scheme further. In terms of the climate change and concern, whether that's been factored in or otherwise, yes, it is factored in terms of consideration of the flood consequences assessment, and in terms of technical advice note 15 and the consideration thereof. So that I can assure you that has been factored in consideration of that, including by Natural Resources Wales. In terms of the historic use of the site, you know, there are conditions relating to kind of recording of historic features on the site at the request of HENEB, who are our archaeological advisors. And so, yes, I believe that, yes, they obviously wouldn't be retained in situ as part of this in terms of the train tracks and what have you. But, you know, that there is a scheme for that in terms of recording any historic artifacts on the site. In terms of a viability point raised by Councillor Johnson, apologies, I didn't know if there was if that warranted or was expecting a response, but you know, the details submitted you know, have been considered by officers, obviously, in development of the scheme by other officers of the council. You know, it is evident that the scheme is highly reliant on levelling up funding to bring a scheme forward on this site, given the abnormals on the site, including particularly the need to raise the level of the land to bring it outside of Welsh Government identified flood zones in terms of tidal flooding. And yeah, I think that was everything. And I guess just to reiterate in terms of the benefits, you know, I don't agree that it's just a you know, it's a housing-led scheme. Yes, okay, there is housing on the site. Yes, there are 100 units on the site. That no escaping that. The open space provided, you know, is envisaged, you know, and I think, you know, Charlotte and the development team who've been, you know, looking at this and are looking to provide strategic open space, and that's the reason the scheme is involved in that way. And then similarly, the water sports development, you know, it is looking at a mixed use development there. Yes, the details aren't there at the minute, but clearly a more formalised and higher quality scheme that would, you know, actually seek to make better use of the kind of marine environment that Barry fits itself in, surely has to be a benefit of the scheme. But I think that's everything from me. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson, you want to come back on something?
If I can just quickly come back on Rob's, if I can just quickly come back on Rob's point there, because I just want to clarify regarding the viability assessment. So the document that's dated 3rd of June 2026 says that it's on our planning papers, but not quoted in. It's on the planning planning portal. That's the word. It's problem. I can't think in English. Sorry. The planning portal has a document here which is dated 3rd of June 2026. It's the most up to date that we've got, and it says the shortfall in available funding of £3,967,782. What weighting should I put on viability when discussing a project that doesn't have any other detail attached to it? Thank you.
I think Ian is the best place to respond to that. Ian,
Thanks,
just-
Chair. Thank you. I'm not entirely sure what you mean when you say no other information attached to it. I mean, it's a matter of judgment for members as to how they weigh viability in the grand scheme of things. Members aren't compelled in every case to approve something where there's a viability problem. It's about weighing the benefits against what members may see as being the harm. Our view is clearly that this is an opportunity to develop something with a source of funding which, as far as I know, isn't going to walk along again. And if we lose that, I think that would be a disastrous situation to miss out on a fairly unique funding opportunity to deliver something with meaningful benefits. Our view is that what this delivers justifies the development, notwithstanding the viability position, but it is a matter of judgment for each member as to weigh that up as they see fit.
Thank you, Ian. Right, I see no other hands up, either on screen or in the chamber. So I think, it's clear that we aren't all agreed, so we need to go to the vote. If you can set that up, please. It'll be a recorded vote, yeah. Remind everyone that we're voting on the motion to support officers' recommendations. For approval.
Happy for us to start, yeah?
Yes.
Right, the voting process has started now. Obviously, people in the chamber will have voting options on their microphones, and those at the remote should have that facility available on their device.
All right, I think all votes are in.
Yeah, Chair. Can we just bring that on for the screen, please, Reece?
Yeah. All votes are in. That has been that has been supported. So it's 9-7.
We'll just bring obviously the individual details.
Yes.
As last recorded vote. So that's up on the screen now. Okay, thank you,
Right,
Chair.
thanks everyone for that. We moved to the next item on the agenda, which was going to be the Gilson's battery storage, but as I said earlier, that's been withdrawn. So our next item is the Flemington Road Stadium site in St Athens, 2024/01152/full. And again, I think this is one for you, Rob.
It is indeed. Can I have the slide up, please? Okay, thank you. Just onto the first slide if you can. Okay, so the application relates to a circa 2.2 hectare site to the northeast of St Athan, adjacent to Flemington Road. It is allocated for residential development for up to 65 dwellings under the current adopted local development plan. As such, the principle of residential development of the site has already been established, including consideration of matters such as sustainability. The site was previously used as a sports facility with associated scarring being visible on the aerial photograph before you. You can see the outline of the former sports track there. Next slide, please. The site amounts to previously developed land, as noted before, because of the previous use of the site. With a localised area of hard standing adjacent to the access, which members who attended the site visit this morning, we stood and had a look at the site from there, albeit the majority of the site has now been vegetated. Next slide, please. The proposal seeks to develop the site for 80 dwellings, with the submissions indicating that 50% of the dwellings would be provided as affordable units, with a mix of flats and houses within the affordable mix. Principally, the proposal will constitute two-storey form, albeit there are 3-storey units proposed around the central square, which is visible before you there. The proposal would result in an efficient use of land, a density higher than that proposed under the LDP, which is generally welcomed in policy terms in terms of making efficient use of previously developed land. The site layout achieves perimeter blocks, maintaining active frontage, including onto Flemingston Road to the north and onto main circulation areas within the site, and a focal area of open space there framed by 3-storey development to 3 sides, which are the north, east and south, I believe. The officer's report provides a detailed appraisal of the salient planning matters, including but not limited to the principle of development, its location, visual impact, highway safety, amenity of neighbouring residential properties, and ecological constraints. I won't go through all of those now, but just to touch on a couple now. So, thank you very much. Go to the next slide. As noted, the proposals would be accessed from Flemingston Road to the north of the site. As members would have noted this morning, having to dodge a couple of cars that were driving along the road, there is a need to require localised widening of Flemingston Road to facilitate the provision of suitable access to the site. This would include a 5.5 metre carriageway to facilitate 2-way vehicular movements, in addition to a footway cycleway. Just to show you the site photograph before you, that shows an existing national speed gateway. The access to the site is beyond that, but as confirmed by my highways colleague on site this morning, the gateway would be moved further and beyond the site frontage to facilitate that. The widening would occur to the right of the photograph in front of you. If we could go to the next slide, please, and just show you, hopefully, sorry, are we on to the next? Yeah, go next slide, lovely, thank you. So I think it's the yellow line broadly shows the extent of the existing hedgerow and where the alignment of the road is, and obviously there the road is being widened beyond that to provide the 5.5 metre carriageway and with the 3 metre active travel route along the frontage. Whilst it would require the removal of a significant amount of hedgerow along Flemingston Road, the proposals do include translocation of the affected hedgerow to the eastern side of the site, which is just enclosed by a post and wire fence currently, which would form part of the green infrastructure plan and associated conditions as part of the site. It's considered this as an appropriate solution to provide safe access and maintain green infrastructure. In terms of other ecological constraints, it's been identified through the application process that the grassland on site was considered to be worthy of sink status. However, it's been agreed with the council ecologists an appropriate scheme of seed harvesting of this grassland and movement to a suitable receptor site would mitigate for this loss and is secured by way of condition and also payment of a legal agreement. Further to this, it's also noted the site is used by reptiles and amphibians, and again, it's been agreed as part of this application that a suitable reptile mitigation strategy to ensure that no harm occurs to reptile is attached and required by conditions attached to this consent, in addition to sensitive site clearance. The next slide, just briefly, shows that's a street scene photo. I forgot this slide was there. Sorry. So this is a street scene photograph from within the site. So the bottom one is from the main area of open space, and the top one is adjacent to the site access, just to give you kind of vague understanding of the kind of massing and kind of design approach of the buildings being proposed here. Sorry, and the next slide, please, hopefully. Yes, so the areas in red and the area in blue there on that show where the areas are being secured to provide suitable translocation of the reptiles found on the site. The proposals have also been supported by a viability appraisal, owing largely to construction and abnormal costs associated with the development. This information has been reviewed by officers of the council and also by Cardiff Capital Region, who are providing some level of funding to this development, and is considered to demonstrate that securing a full suite of planning obligations would render the development of the site unviable in a commercial sense. and therefore financial contributions, including those towards sustainable transport, have not been secured. It is, just to reiterate, the scheme is proposed to provide 50% affordable housing, which is a requirement of Welsh Government, who own the land currently. But only a policy compliant level of affordable housing is being secured by way of a legal agreement. However, there are separate mechanisms by which way the 50% affordable housing is being secured. Noting this in the content of the officer report and matters arising, it's officer's recommendation that the application should be approved. Members should note that the recommendation is to approve permission subject to conditions set out in the report and the proposed legal agreement relating to provision of affordable housing, ecological mitigation, and also, on a separate note, they're securing golf netting, which is being submitted under a separate application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. I don't believe you've got any speakers on this.
There's no public speakers, Chair.
Right, in that case, we can go straight to discussion. Councillor Charles, you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Stephen Haynes, the local Cynllunio councillor, cannot be with us today, unfortunately. But what he has said, and I believe he sent it to you anyway, that community has no facilities or shops. It would be an ideal opportunity to include a shop. East Vale isn't adopted, so those community facilities are private. Thus, this new estate needs its own. And townhouse style is out of character with a rural Vale. Obviously, we have terrible public transport as well. Only the 304, one bus every 65 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. I'm not sure I've seen any other hands. Yeah. Councillor Johnson. Oh, yeah.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd, roedd, bore yma, roedd, iawn, Cadeirydd? Bore yma roedd cyfle i fynd i'r safle. Yn amlwg, mae hyn wedi bod yn rhan o gynlluniau ers cyfnod hir. Wedi cael ei derbyn fel rhan o'r cynllun datblygu lleol. Roedd e'n ddim quite yn surprise i fi edrych at y safle, o'n i'n disgwyl rhywbeth oedd yn bach fwy brownfield a'i naws oherwydd hen ddefnydd o'r safle. Nes i ddim gweld unrhyw broblem gyda'r cais yma. Naethon ni cael sgwrs ar sut oedd y cyngor a'r datblygwyr yn mynd ati i ddelio gyda materion amgylcheddol eco-gyfeillgar yr ardal, sut oedden nhw'n mynd i newid y ffyrdd ac y mynediad. Wrth gwrs, bydd y mynediad yn parhau i fod gyferbyn i Burley Place, so dwi ddim yn teimlo fel mae'n ymestyn yn fwy bell mewn i'r cefn gwlad gweitha'r ffaith, wrth gwrs, mae yn y darn nesaf i lle roedd e. Dwi yn poeni am y diffyg cyfleusterau i'r cymuned yn ei gyfanroedd, ond dwi ddim yn credu mai hyn yn pwyso gymaint yn erbyn cytuno'r cais yma, ond mae hyn yn rhywbeth dwi'n credu dylai cael ei ystyried gan y cyngor cymuned, gan y cyngor sir, gan y gynghorwyr i'r ward, sut i fynd ati i sicrhau bod cyfleusterau, siopau ac yn y blaen ar gael i'r bobl sydd eisoes yn byw yn yr ardal, a nid yn unig ar gyfer y datblygiad newydd. So mae hyn yn rhywbeth hanesyddol bod yna diffyg cyfleusterau, o hyn dwi'n deall. A mae angen i fynd i'r afal gyda hyn, achos mae yna cyfleusterau ar gael yn sain tathynau hunain sydd yn milltir neu ddau i'r de, ond dim yn y stadym. So mae lot o bobl sy'n byw yna heb lawr o gyfleusterau. Dwi ddim yn siŵr mae'n rhywbeth sy'n perthyn i ni heno i drafod hyn. Ni wedi cael yr un math o sgwrs am y Bendrix yn ddiwetha, o le mae'r gathering place yn y darn o St Athan fan hyn. Ond mae hyn yn rhywbeth i ystyried os ni'n fod ymlaen. Lot o tai newydd a tai hanesyddol yn yr ardal a dim llawer o gyfleusterau. So dwi'n hapus gyda'r cais sydd o flaen ni pnawn 'ma, ond dwi yn codi pryderon am y diffyg cyfleusterau yn yr ardal yn ei gyfanrwydd. Diolch.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Cowpe, you had your hand up. Marianne? We can't hear you if you're on. I see you've come up on the screen, but we can neither hear nor see you.
Councillor Cowpe, do you want to try and leave briefly and rejoin and see if that works?
We'll have to wait until she does that now, otherwise she'll miss.
Gillian Bruce. Get Gillian Bruce.
Yeah, but we need to wait to give Marianne a chance to get back in, otherwise she'll miss part of the discussion. Marianne.
We can see you now, Councillor Cowpe. Can you rejoin?
For a second, it's gone off now.
Can you come back on screen? We could see you.
Marianne, you came on screen very briefly and then you went off again. She's gone again.
Yeah, she's showing on the system. So I'm hoping if Councillor Cowpe, can you rejoin, please? Can you come back on screen? Councillor Cowpe, you're able to come back on. We can see you've rejoined.
I have rejoined. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Councillor. Yeah.
Right.
And see you.
It's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? Because we checked this worked 3 times before the meeting started. Sorry, Chair, apologies. My hand up was a mistake. That's what I was saying. But just to reassure you, I can hear everything.
That's okay. Well, we were waiting for you, but never mind.
Thank you. I understand.
Right. In that case, Councillor Bruce, you have your hand up.
Yes, it says, is East Vale going to maintain the area around this because it's not been adopted by the Vale of Glamorgan?
I'll wait for one of the officers to come on to reply to that. Ian Robinson, you want to address something that's been raised?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to come back on the points. Councillor Charles's comments. So I think we recognise that the area would ideally be served by more sort of in the way of services than it is. It is allocated in the plan. It's been through that test of soundness already. What this application can't be expected to do, unfortunately, is make good for deficits elsewhere. It's allocated purely for housing in the LDP, and it's of a scale which, by itself, wouldn't viably deliver a retail unit, particularly noting that it's needed CCR gap funding to make it work in the first place. Just as context to that, and I'd probably make a similar point to something I said when we dealt with the Hayswood Road application a month or 2 ago. Being clear at the outset, this is not part of the proposals, but just as context, I'm happy to engage with St Athan Community Council and Councillor Haynes and Councillor Lynch-Wilson in St Athan about the scope for us to do something there. Now, that's not something I can say the council has control over, and if something were to come forward in that part of the settlement, then we would obviously have to have regard to how that might affect the retail activity in the village centre, because there is policy protection for retail activity in defined village centres. However, if there is scope for something to be delivered, I'm happy to engage with the community council and members about hopefully taking a rounded policy approach towards doing something that will assist that part of the village. To clarify, that is not proposed as part of this application. I'm not suggesting members should make a decision based on any preconception that is going to happen. I'm just giving context to a future conversation I'm happy to engage with. In terms of brownfield, yeah, it's amazing how quickly previously developed land, we typically say it's amazing how quickly it sort of generates and becomes almost greenfield in appearance. But by the planning definition, it's previously developed land. In Councillor Bruce's point, I mean, any areas of open space outside this site, not really for this application, and I'm not aware of any proposals for management regimes to change for those. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Ian Perry's got his hand up next. Ian?
No audio, Councillor.
Have you got your microphone too?
I do. Right, that's technical. I pressed the button. I've now frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you, Councillor.
Right, I can't see myself. I'm lucky. Right. My thoughts here are it's wouldn't be the right location for a shop, and I'm quite happy to speak to people as to why it's not the right location for a shop in St Athan. But I am concerned that we losing a flat area which could be used as a sports facility, because I believe that we are actually short of sports facilities in the Vale of Glamorgan, and where other people who are going to be living in this new development going to go and play sports. It's elsewhere in the Vale. We're building all the flat land. We've got sloped land that's left, and that's not really good for a football pitch or a cricket pitch. So I think that there's something wrong with our LDP process, where the sports facilities are always attached on the end, and then you find there's no suitable land left in the area because you're building on the land that would have been perfectly great for these facilities, and what you've got left is land for more housing. So yeah, I don't think this is really the best scheme for that site for the people of St Athan and future generations, but it is what it is, and we've got an LDP in the plan system that's wrong. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you put your hand up, Ian, but you've spoken once. I'll bring Mark in and then you, unless there's other hands.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report so far on this application. Again, I'll go back to what I did say about the previous application in terms of affordable housing provision. It says, the need is further evidenced by the following figures from the Council Homes for You, this is St Athan Ward. And it quotes up to 203 people on the waiting list who want to require the different types of bedrooms. Clearly, there is a need for affordable housing in this area. Go back to Councillor Perry's point about open space, and there was one time, I understand, I've left its track on this venue, but obviously it's not here anymore. Clearly, though, there is provision in terms of public open space on page 181 of something in the region of 4,500 square metres of public open space, which includes over 1,000 square metres for other children's play space plus children's equipped play facilities. So clearly, you know, there is provision on this application for plenty of open space, you know, so therefore it makes it more viable, I feel. I mean, I know the point you're making, and I think it's a good point about perhaps we need more facilities in terms of shopping nearby, and I do, but I also know that we live in the 21st century. An awful lot of people do online shopping nowadays, increasingly. And I know for some people, that's something that they don't really want to do, and I kind of get that as well. But I think in many cases, people do use that often, and that's quite common. And equally, though, as you know, as Ian Robertson rightly said, our head of planning is that, you know, he would discuss it with the local members about provision of a possible store or possible outlet in this vicinity. So I think we got to have a balanced approach here, and I'm happy to move officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Mark. Just for information, the clerk to the local TCC was there with us today and was asking about things like shopping and so on, but was very supportive, actually, I'd say, of the proposal as it is. But there was discussion around looking and working with the TCC to see if anything could be done to improve the local facilities. Ian. Johnson.
So, nifer o Ians ar y pwyllgor yma. Just yn gloi iawn, dwi'n cymryd yn ganiataol bod y safle oedd yn perthyn i'r MOD, ac felly ers iddyn nhw gadael y safle, mae hwn wedi bod yn wag, a dyna pam wedi cael ei cynnwys yn yr LDP. Y cwestiwn jyst o'n i'n mynd i gadarnhau gyda Ian Robinson oedd ynglyn â'r cytundeb cyfreithiol sydd ar tudalen 186, dwi'n credu. Dwi jyst yn cadarnhau bod, cadarnhau'r ffaith, mae yna cynnig gan y datblygwyr i darparu 50% o dau fforddiadwy sydd yn rhan, sydd yn cyd weithrediad gyda'r cwmni tai Hafod, ond mae'r cytundeb cyfreithiol yw ar gyfer 35% yn unig, ac o'n i jyst moyn rhyw fath o gadarnhad ar am y gwahaniaeth a sut mae, beth sy'n, yn amlwg ni'n moyn sicrhau rhyw isafswm o dau fforddiadau fel rhan o'r safle, a maen nhw'n cynnig yn nifer yn uwch, ond beth fydd yn digwydd os maen nhw yn troi rownd nes ymlaen i ddweud, hwn o'r cytundeb cyfreithiol, a ni'n mynd i gadw at hyn, a nid at y 50% sy'n cael ei cynnig fel rhan o'r cais o flaen ni pnawn yma. So just rhyw fath o gadarnhad na eglyd fan hyn fyddi'n croesawu. Diolch.
Ian Robinson, can you respond to that?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, my first thought on that was, yes, I suspect the recommendation should say at least or no less than 35% affordable housing, just noting it says 35%. Our position would be the same. We've assessed this as acceptable based on 35. We would see 15% more as being a benefit, but our recommendation is based on the policy requirement, and we have had this conversation with the applicant. We can only require them in the legal agreement or require them in conditions to comply with policy. So that would be remain our position. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Helen, you had your hand up.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, just to add to that. Sorry, I just trying to butt in. It's just the 50% is also secured because it's a Welsh Government site who are selling the land. I think it's contingent and conditional within that it is that the developer provides 50% affordable housing. So it's not completely unsecured, but it's just unsecured beyond the planning process because we can't secure more than what the policy requirement is. So I just want to make sure that was clear. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Rob. Helen, then.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check something with the planning officer, and that is, how far is the bus stop from, is it the road entrance? Is there a path out which is not just the road entrance? Because having walked around many estates, I often find that you can't get out if you're a pedestrian. So that's the first thing. So bus stop. You walk to the pedestrian route. No, on the estate. No, not on the bus, on the estate. So I wanted to know how far the bus stop is from the entrance to the proposed housing. Yeah, that's the first thing. And is there a separate path within the estate so you don't have to go all the way around the road to go in? That's another bugbear of mine. And I do like I do think it's quite sympathetic to, it's stone clad. We've got, in my ward, we've got new housing which is sympathetic to the environment, which is also stone clad, opposite a stone clad terrace on Colbert Road. It looks like a very similar design. It's gone down really well with the community. And I also like the central part of the green in the middle of the estate where there's like a community element to it. So I think that's a really positive, but I did want to check just about paths and bus stop, please.
Thank you, Helen. Rob, do you want to come back on that?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can. Okay, so there is a path proposed to join to the path running to the west of the development. So there are obviously footways running along the frontage of the site, which I discussed earlier, but there's also a pedestrian link proposed to the west of the site as well. In terms of the exact location of the bus stop, I believe it's round on the main road. I think Councillor Johnson got the bus there this morning, so he may be best to confirm that. But yes, certainly there is a pedestrian link and bus stops are within walking distance of the site. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Rob. Yeah, I think off camera, I think Councillor Johnson and Councillor Hodges were reassuring Councillor Payne on that matter. In that case, with no more hands up and no one else wishing to contribute. Oh, sorry.
Ever so quickly, Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ian Robinson for the assurance that everybody is aware of the problem that there is with the shopping, and therefore I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. I still think that there's a level of dissent about this. We aren't all united, in which case I think we need to go for a vote. So if you can set that up, please. And we're voting either for or against officers' recommendations for approval.
The vote is set up, Chair, so when you're ready, we'll
go ahead.
Start. Yeah, voting will start now, committee members.
Still one vote not in.
Councillor Bruce, Councillor Cave, you still on the meeting? We can see you haven't voted. Councillor Bruce.
Yes, sorry. I didn't hear I didn't know what I'm voting for or against.
Voting for or
I didn't
against
hear it.
Officers' recommendation for approval.
Right, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But
she's been here throughout the meeting, yeah. 13, 14, 15. Right, well, if Councillor Cave's not voted, we may as well call it anyway, because...
Councillor Cave, can I just check if you are online? And if you intend to vote, can you check on that? No, she's gone. No, Councillor Cave appears to have left, was not on, so...
Allowed to vote 15. We've got 15 votes registered.
Can we show that on the screen?
We're there. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's 13 for, 1 against and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, we come to the last matter on our agenda today, which is application 2026/00299, -full, 17 Rutland Close, Barry.
Excuse me, Chair, sorry. Can I ask you to speak directly into the microphone, because your voice is moving away at times? Thank you.
Sorry about that. In that case, I'll repeat what I just said, which is we're looking at application 2026. You know, it's where I've got things to hand. 2026/00299, -full, 17 Rutland Close, Barry. And who's taking this? Kerry? Ian Robinson is taking this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you noted, this is application 2026/00299/FUL for 17 Rutland Close. Just noting at the outset that there are matters arising, a submission from the applicant which seeks to defend the merits of the scheme, and a submission from Councillor Lovelock-Edwards which raises a number of concerns, and those have been circulated to members. So the aerial photo on the screen shows the location of the dwelling. It's a detached dwelling in a generally residential street scene of similar dwellings of scale and form to either side. Next slide, please. So this slide is actually quite useful in showing the kind of the key points at hand this evening. So as background, planning permission was granted for a single-storey extension at this property in 2021. Subsequent to the start of development, the council received an enforcement complaint that the development wasn't being constructed as per the approved plans. So officers visited and noted that there were some deviations from the approved scheme to the current scheme. In main, the differences relate to a increase of approximately 20 centimetres in the maximum height of the extension. I'll come back to that in a moment. Some relatively minor changes to the pattern of glazing on the rear elevation and changes to materials. The main point, in my view, is probably the issue of the scale and how and whether that affects the neighbouring property. So members will note from the image on the screen, hopefully, the plan at the bottom shows the approved scheme, and the plan in the middle shows the scheme proposed now. So the sort of column of images in the middle are probably the most useful. You can see on the bottom that the highest point of the lean-to roof, where it adjoins the original house, sits sort of nominally below the sill level of the first floor windows. As constructed, the extension has a slightly steeper pitch to it, and it adjoins the original house kind of at the point of, right under the sill. So that's approximately 20 centimetres in height. Officers are of the view that hasn't had that and the materials changes hasn't had a significant effect on the appearance or character of the extension. We feel it still continues to have an acceptable impact in terms of its relationship to the house and the wider street scene. And then, as set out in the report, we've also considered how those changes have affected the relationship with the neighbouring property, noting, of course, that we have had representations from the neighbour which object to the size of the extension, amongst other things. In our view, the changes are very minor. I'm sure I can speak with some members on committee to say we share your frustration when things are constructed different to the approved plans. It creates an enforcement case, it uses officer time, and it frustrates neighbours, and it's not something we would ever advocate, and and we don't condone it. We do nevertheless need to limit ourselves to purely the planning matters, which is an assessment of, is this proposal acceptable? And we really are focusing here on the nature of the changes between the approved scheme and the proposed scheme. Officers are of the view that the changes are minor and don't discernibly change the impact of the development on the neighbour compared to the approved scheme, and consequently, notwithstanding the very strong objections which we have taken fully into account, our recommendation is to approve the application. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you, Ian. Right, as I indicated earlier, we do have a number of speakers on this, the first being Mr. Brent Edwards, who I think is the neighbour in question. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Edwards.
Is it 3 minutes from when I start? Yeah. Okay. My name is Brent Edwards, and I own the property next door and downhill to the property applying for the second planning amendment, the second one. My background is as follows: 35 years in the private housing sector, house building industry, and as a contracts manager and engineer, and responsible for the construction of over 4,000 houses during that time. And I'm here to object to this application for these reasons. The already approved plans clearly state the height of the building, which has already a significant impact on the property, with overshadowing and loss of natural daylight and sunlight during summer months, which is now exaggerated by that impact. The materials used should be as existing, as clearly stated on the approved plans, and not the materials used by the contractor for no particular reason other than cost saving. They are not conducive to the surrounding buildings. These materials are also poorly constructed, which highlights this problem even more. Uniformity is a major factor in this area, and no other materials like this are in this area. All drainage is to go into existing, as clearly stated on the approved plans. This has not been done. During heavy rain, the water now flows freely into the lower adjacent property, and we've experienced flooding on 2 separate occasions. with video evidence, which hasn't been able to be submitted today. This property was built during the second amendment. Oh, sorry, I'll skip that second. The planning department was warned of all these issues by me, and it chose to ignore each one without placing any caveats or warnings when passing the second amendment. By the way, the initial planning application approval was not even viable either, as the site was not surveyed by the architect of this project and was not checked by planning department before granting approval. I've been let down and I feel treated with contempt by this department and their misinformation, lack of accountability, and I have been left in a compromised position with no duty of care from this department. Please do not become complicit with this inadequate department. Please visit the site. Photographs do not do justice to the situation. This is why Photoshop was created and thrives in an attempt to convey the sense of reality. There are major issues concerning this project, including loss of privacy. This matter needs proper investigation, and I am free to give more detailed information, which is definitely required. The construction is also oversized and encroaches on our property, and each time it rains, they're unable to complete now because of that encroachment, and each time it rains, we get flooded with water from their roof. I'd like to thank Councillors Emma Goodjohn and Belinda Lovelock-Edwards for their help and guidance. Sorry, that's my 3 minutes. With this matter, I have no experience in dealing with local council. It has been very stressful, especially for my family. I felt completely voiceless without their support.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. That's your time.
Oh, I've got more. Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
your time's
All
gone.
right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
In fact, I gave you a few seconds longer. Are there any points of clarification from any members of the committee? Councillor Payne, you have your hand up first.
Thank you. Are there any photographs? Because that was a plan. Are there?
The photographs that, oh, you mean the photographs that Bell and Emma were sent in? No, there aren't. They weren't fused, but there will be photographs.
So it'll be easy to see.
There will be
For me,
photographs
it'll be
when we
easy
go
to
through
see. No.
Just there are photographs of the presentation. No, there's not. No, in that case, no, there isn't. I thought there would be.
Should we have some photographs?
To answer, Chair. I think we felt that the plans adequately depicted the differences between the approved scheme and the proposed scheme, and our view is, you know, the key points are what has been approved, what is proposed now, and judging the relative impacts, and I think the plans do that adequately.
Yeah. Anyway, that isn't now a point of clarification for Mr. Edwards. That's a point for the committee. Councillor Bruce, you have your hand up. This is a point of clarification.
Photographs would have been very useful. I went to see it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Buckley, is this a point of clarification for Mr. Edwards, based on what he said?
I believe so, Chair. I was going to ask Mr. Edwards how the flooding, how the drainage of the water off the roof wasn't going where it was supposed to, and how it's affected his property. Is that a point of clarification?
Yes, no,
Chair?
that's something he did mention. Yes, so that's relevant.
Thank you.
The building is built oversized. It's not built to plan. The rainwater goods from the roof are in my property completely. I've erected a structure now, and they are unable to finish the rainwater goods because they're in my property. And now when it rains, the rain just comes into our property because they're unable to complete.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
In that case, no other points of clarification from Mr. Edwards. We move on. If you want to turn your mic off, please, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Councillor Perry, is this a point of clarification from Mr. Edwards?
Yeah, it is. Mr. Edwards, so there's no party wall agreement in place or being offered to you?
Nothing at all. And it is a legal requirement before the job even starts. Planning didn't check this, and I wasn't aware of it until recently, but there's no party wall agreement. Although recently they have had a surveyor there to survey, but this was a couple of months ago now, and I've heard nothing since.
Okay, thank you for that. moving on then, no other points of clarification, Mr Edwards. We come to local member Emma Goodjohn, Councillor Emma Goodjohn. You have 5 minutes, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we must respect that the planning process allows for retrospective planning applications. This application is not a minor technicality. The applicant has chosen to build a structure that is materially different and far more harmful than the approved plans. They have built significantly higher and larger to the detriment of their neighbours. So today I present you with 3 material planning considerations grounded in our local development plan to turn down the application as built. First, on overbearing impact. The officer's report downplays the 20 centimetre retrospective increase in roof height, but we must look at the context. This extension sits on significantly higher ground than the neighbouring properties. By increasing the roof pitch to 4.2 metres on an already elevated plot, the extension has become dominant, overbearing, brick wall looming over number 15. This violates policy MD2 of the local development plan by failing to safeguard residential amenity and causing unacceptable loss of outlook and natural light, directly contradicting the council's supplementary planning guidance in a way which was not considered in the 2025 application. On privacy, because of the elevation difference, the rear opening alterations and close proximity to the boundaries, an intrusive overlooking relationship has been created. Neighbours at number 15 now suffer from a direct loss of privacy in their private garden spaces. This fails core test policy MD2 criterion 8 of the LDP, which is designed to protect residents' rights to enjoy their homes without feeling constantly observed. Finally, good design is a key requirement in both the Vale LDP and Planning Policy Wales. This retrospective build introduces a steep, awkward roof pitch and mismatched materials that disregard host dwelling. Under policy MD5 criterion 3 of the LDP, new development must be sympathetic to the character and appearance of the locality. This unauthorised design stands out as a discordant feature in the street scene. We must not lower our design standards simply because a structure is already standing. Chair, retrospective applications should not be rubber stamping exercise for those who choose to bypass approved plans. Whatever officers may say, the lived experience of residents is that this is causing great harm to their lives. The cumulative impact of the increased height, elevated extension and altered layout has crossed the line into unacceptable harm. For these reasons, I ask the committee to uphold the protections of the Vale LDP policies MD2 and MD5 and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Are there any points of clarification for Councillor Goodjohn from any members of the committee? I see no hands. Thank you, Emma. We have one more speaker on this, Mr. Ryan Pike. I think you're online. You have, if you can come on screen, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Pike, from the time you start speaking.
Afternoon, Jake. I'm experiencing. Apologies, I'm experiencing a bit of a delay between the visual and the audio. Can I check you can hear me?
Yeah,
we can see and hear you.
Yeah. Right, Mr. Pike, can you hear us?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but there's a big delay between the visual and the audio. It's not really lining up, but I'll do my best.
As long as the audio's coming through, when you're ready, you've got 3 minutes, okay? Just to reiterate that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Yeah, I submitted a detailed written statement, so I'll just cover the main points here. It's worth emphasising the extension is identical to the scheme that was approved in January, apart from an 8-inch increase in the ridge height where the new roof joins the existing house, and two slightly different brick types being used on the side. Nevertheless, a number of objections have been raised. Several are based on factual errors, so it is really important to clarify where the facts have been misrepresented. Firstly, Councillor Goodjohn's response claimed that the extension creates overlooking issues because of how it's been built compared to the approved plans. This is not true. The part of the extension relevant to overlooking is built exactly as approved. It was also claimed, and has been again to date, the extension has a larger footprint than approved. Again, this is not correct. This has been inspected and measured. The footprint is not bigger than on the approved plans. It's claimed there were no building control inspections and that inappropriate materials have been used. This one is quite extraordinary, really. It is categorically untrue. There have been lots of inspections throughout, and they have confirmed compliance with all the relevant regulations, including on materials. It's claimed the bricks are non-matching and out of character. The bricks are a close match to the existing property, and I'm very happy to provide photos to demonstrate that. There are comments on drainage and flood risk. To reassure you, any temporary drainage issues relate to ongoing work, and when the work is complete, any issues will be resolved. Building Control and Welsh Water have confirmed the drainage proposals are appropriate. In terms of overall scale and impact, neither the ground levels nor the eaves heights are different to the previously approved plans. Overall, this is a modest single-storey extension. It does not encroach over the property boundary, and this can be proven. Apart from a small increase in the ridge height, it is the same as was previously approved. It is also extremely close to what could have been built under permitted development rights, and is actually smaller in some dimensions. There are many, many examples of developments in the local area with substantially greater impacts on neighbouring properties which have been approved. The planning department has concluded it's acceptable, and we respectfully ask members to support that recommendation. If any members would find it helpful, we would be very happy to welcome site visits. So the points I have made can be verified in person. There is a great deal more that I would like to say in relation to some of the other claims that have been made, but I believe my time is up. Thanks very much for your time.
Yes, your time is up, Mr. Pike. Although, if you stay online for a moment while I ask it for points of clarification. Yeah, Councillor Perry, I think you had your hand up first. Is this a point of clarification?
Yeah. You said a lot of things that are in place. Is there a party wall agreement in place?
Mr. Pike? Question was, is there a party wall?
No, there is no.
There is not.
No,
okay.
There is no. No, there is no party wall agreement in place. No.
Okay, thank
but
you.
It would be required.
Councillor Charles, you have
My
a point of
understanding is
clarification.
that is not a legal requirement.
Councillor Charles, you have a point of clarification.
It's not a point of clarification, but I would like to speak, if that's okay.
That's at the moment, we're just going through points of clarification. Councillor Buckley, is this a point of clarification?
Yes, Chair. I was going to ask for clarification. If the eaves height is the same as was originally planned, does that mean that the shadow is not increased, even though the height of the roof where it adjoins the main building is up by 20 centimetres? And I wondered if our officers could confirm if inspections were carried out during the construction.
That's for the, that's something for the debate shortly. I don't think that's something within Mr. Pike's remit. Councillor Stallard, you have a point of clarification?
I do. Mr. Pike, I just wanted to know, when the rain falls on the new roof, where does that rainwater go?
So it's collected into guttering, which when the guttering is complete, would discharge into new gullies, which would then drain to the existing soakaway. That is the approved drainage plans which have been accepted by building control and Welsh Water. As Mr. Edwards explained, we currently cannot complete that because he has erected a large scaffolding structure. It is on our land. It is incorrect to claim that the rainwater goods are entirely on their land, and this I can prove. I would like to state, I realise this is not necessarily a something that can be determined by this committee, but I absolutely can prove that we have not encroached over the property boundary, and when that is when that's resolved, then any water from the new roof will drain into the gullies and ultimately into the new soakaway.
Thank you. Ian Buckley, you've still got your hand up. Is this a new matter or?
No, legacy, and I do apologise, Chair, and I apologise.
And Caris, you still have your hand up as well. Right. In that case, there are no other hands up for points of clarification. Ian, would you like to address the issues that have been arisen?
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yep, so the first point raised was overshadowing.
Excuse me, can I just say, oh, he's gone. I was about to say that Mr. Pike was still on screen, but he's gone. Yeah. Ian, then.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, on the overshadowing, overbearing point, which does touch on what Councillor Buckley raised as well. I mean, we are of the view that there is an imperceptible difference, given the orientation of the property, the size of what's been approved, and the nature of the change. We don't feel that there's any material change in experience of shadowing or whether the structure appears overbearing. I know that Councillor Goodjohn referred to a brick wall looming, but the height of the brick wall hasn't changed. We're looking at the point where the roof is higher away from the boundary. Clearly, it's a matter of judgment. There's nothing in planning legislation or our guidance that says a height is acceptable and a certain other height isn't, because every site is different, and each case must be treated on its merits. So we have to make that judgment, and obviously the neighbour and Councillor Goodjohn and anyone else are entitled to make their judgment, but we are firmly of the view that it is a very, very small change that wouldn't have a materially different impact. On the materials, I mean, yeah, unless you're extending onto a very recently constructed property, it's hard usually to source identical materials. It's not uncommon in a residential context for a slight variance in brick, and this isn't a conservation area, for argument's sake, where there is such an extreme degree of uniformity that its character is derived from. So we don't feel that the difference in brick is significant or renders it unacceptable. Again, it's a matter of judgment, and that's our judgment on the matter. In terms of the issues with kind of the boundary and things, I mean, planning officers can't reasonably be expected to survey a whole site when they go on site. Issues like this at the boundary, they really are a matter between the two neighbouring properties, I'm afraid, and I recognise there are issues here of dispute between the two parties, but that is not fundamental to the merits of the planning application. A party wall act is not a planning requirement. We can't refuse an application for the absence of a party wall agreement. So frustrating as I appreciate that may be for a neighbour where they may expect one to be in place, we can't refuse a planning application for that reason. Those were points raised by Mr. Edwards. I think that's probably covers most of the points from Councillor Goodjohn. I think, listen, this isn't a planning issue, but it's been raised in a public meeting. I feel a duty to respond to it. I don't agree that there's been contempt or a lack of accountability. A number of officers have visited the neighbouring property, including the operational manager for planning, the team leader, and the case officer and the enforcement officer have been to site as well. That's an unusual level of attention and assessment to a house extension, and I think it demonstrates how seriously we've taken the concerns, and I just want to go on record as saying I feel we have dealt with that fairly and done as much as we can to try and respond to those concerns. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Right, we now come to the point of the SUL. I open it to discussion. Janice, Councillor Charles, you were the first.
Oh, thank you again, Chair. I think at the very, very least that we do owe it to Mr. Edwards to go and have a site visit. I have driven past it myself, and my feelings on it is that it looks quite dreadful. But if it is, as been pointed out, that everything is correct and okie-dokie, and there's not a lot we can do about it, but I really feel before things go against Mr. Edwards, that it is at least needed to have a site visit from the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Bruce.
I have been to have a look at this after I heard about concerns, and I have to say that it does look dreadful. And I feel really sorry for the gentleman that this property overlooks, because it does encroach on it badly. And I agree with Janice, a site visit would be perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I second a site visit, please, just for clarification? You know, I would have liked a photograph. We can't all get to the site visits when we need to get to them necessarily, but this is one I do want to be at.
Yeah, it would have helped had we had photographs within the report or available for the meeting. There's a lot of people proposing going for a site visit. Can we defer this to the next meetings to enable that?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the matter can be deferred. Yeah. There are some points I'd like to come back and give a little bit of clarification on very briefly, if you're happy for me to. But that's if members want to make a motion.
Well, we've still got a couple of people who want to speak. So, Councillor Johnson, I think you had your hand up, and then Councillor Perry put his hand up.
Just very briefly, Chair. I mean, I'm very happy to have a site visit. I always like a trip on the 304 anyway. Goes past the top of Highlight Park. My only request would be, obviously, that members actually attend, because I think it was probably only a third of our membership that attended this morning, pretty much. Thank you.
Pretty much. Councillor Perry.
Yeah, fine. Let's do that.
Am I here?
Yes.
Wait. Yeah, I'm in the dark. My screen's completely frozen, so I hope I'm here. Yeah, I mean, great. If no one's proposed, I would propose or second deferral, and I've got concerns on this as well.
Okay. In that case, the proposal is to defer this to the next meeting, or to a future meeting. Ian, you wanted to come back and say a few things before you move to that.
Thanks, Chair. And this isn't trying to convince members not to defer. That's entirely your decision. There's some points raised by members, and I think for completeness for this meeting, they should be addressed. Just for avoidance of doubt, Councillor Charles, I've not said everything's correct. I would take that as meaning that it's kind of as it should be, and it's obviously being built differently, so that's fully accepted. So I'm not saying everything's correct. We just judge what's there as being acceptable. Councillor Bruce's opinion on the appearance, I mean, it is half built. I would say, typically these things do have a different appearance when they're partway through construction. On the point of overlooking, again, the scheme hasn't varied in any respect in a way that would increase overlooking, and that's obviously a different matter to encroachment. Point noted regarding photos, we'll deal with that in the future. I think our perspective is that photos don't really assist greatly in terms of detailing the nature of the change, and yeah, that's fine, Chair. But obviously, we'll leave it to members now to vote as you see fit.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Right, the proposal is that we defer this to a future meeting, and do I see any hands against deferral? Councillor Cowp, is that a hand against deferral?
Chair, I was just going to raise the point that we're coming into summer holiday period. So to get everyone there, it might be a couple of weeks before we can arrange that.
It'll be the next scheduled meeting, which is September.
Okay.
So are there any people who disagree with deferral? I see no hands. In that case, we will defer this matter to the next meeting. Thank you all. That's us done for the meeting. See you all in September. Have a good summer.
Yes.